Hi there, everyone, and welcome back to my garden on this incredibly windy day. So I do apologise if the camera's rocking on the tripod a bit, but I've got a great project that I'm going to do today, and that is I'm going to give some attention to the many tubs of ferns that I have around my garden. I do grow ferns in the main garden, but most of my ferns I grow in containers at the back of my house. So I'll take the camera in a minute and I'll show you where most of these ferns live. So the first thing I'm going to say is that all of these ferns that I'm going to show you in containers have been in these containers for years. Probably a good 10 years when I try and think back. So the reason that I'm paying attention to my ferns now is that I noticed that this year a lot of them didn't perform very well. They didn't look the healthiest. And they also went over quite quickly. So normally my ferns will all sort of come up in their containers over the space of 2 or 3 weeks in the spring. They look fantastic all summer long, and then at this time of year, so I am shooting this video in November, at this time of year they will start to go over. I'll show you in a minute what I mean. But what I found with a lot of my ferns, as with this tub of ferns here, they were only out and looking their best for about a month, and then they started going really sort of black and crispy at the edges. It could be the weather. It just could have been a bad year for my ferns. But if you can see, the shape of this fern in this pot should have had straight sides. But look at that. There are 3 ferns in this pot. So there's one there, very large one there, and one in that corner. And they come up and it's just one big display. And I've got a number of pots like this. So my thinking is that they are just pot bound and they've been in this pot for so long that there's no nutrition left in the soil for them, poor things. My gut feeling is that if I don't do anything about it, if I don't take them out of the pot and have a look and see what's happening, then I'll probably get the same result next year, and I don't want that to happen. And I also don't want the plants to be struggling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get these out of the pot without splitting the pot. I've sourced a number of other pots in the garage, and what I'll do is I'll divide these back into 3 and then I'll put them up separately, because I'll show you where they live now normally. So this is the little courtyard at the back of my house. I'll put a picture up now of what this courtyard usually looks like. So I've got lots of beautiful acers. This one's a beautiful red acer. That's another lovely big tall acer there. I'll come around very slowly. And then I've got an acer here and an acer there. And you know, the acers do steal the show because they're so spectacular looking, but they wouldn't look half as good if they didn't have a backdrop of ferns. So this fern here, I would say, is behaving as he normally behaves. So he's just starting to go over now. But if you look in this pot here, this is another one which has 3 clumps of ferns in, and that one has been finished for months, whereas normally that fern would look like that fern. And then around here, if we come to the white garden, you know, this is what I would expect my ferns to look like in November. Still a bit of green, but definitely going pretty sort of russet colours. But the ferns that I've just shown you when I started the video looked like this months ago, and that's just not right. Here's another pot of ferns that just finished really early, and another pot here. But can you see how the pot is all twisted? And then I've got another pot of ferns here. Right, so the first thing I've got to do is get this out. And this is a good time of year to be repotting things like this, because if I'd waited until the spring to do this, I would have had lots of new growth coming up, and when I tipped it out like this, I would probably have damaged that new growth. Oh, well, there's a surprise. Didn't expect that to come out as easily. Right. Wow. Oh my gosh. That is like concrete. So that is solid root. Poor thing. Little wonder it had stopped looking healthy. Right, we'll turn it over. Right, I'm so pleased I took this out. So what I'm going to do is, I can't find my gardening saw, which is brilliant, but I've got nothing to lose here. I'm just going to saw through this root. The thickest part of the sort of crown of the fern is going to be here. So I'm going to trying to saw it so you can see what I'm doing. Oh, this saw isn't as good as my gardening saw. I know who borrowed it. I'm not going to mention their name, but never to be seen again. The saw that is, not my husband. Right, I'm going to cut down here. Obviously expected far too much from these ferns. Expected them to grow in, you know, they've had no food. Oh, I'm loving today. I'm loving doing this. Right, so there, that is, it looks like a Christmas cake, doesn't it? So that is just a solid block of root. So that can go in the compost bin. Right, this might be a bit easier to break up now. Just sort of, oh there, I can sort of loosen them a bit and damage them. Yeah. That's better, isn't it? So I've got that sort of fuzzy root there, and then this is going to just put out new roots there as well. Right, so that's one. Put this one in too. I thought when I was thinking, oh right, I'll make a video of doing that and I'll do all the ferns. It's going to take ages, so I may just show you the one, but I'm just going to carry on today and get them all done. Again, this is the side that's been on the outside of that pot. So I'm just going to damage the roots and they'll start trying to repair themselves and putting new roots out. And then I suspect that new roots will come out from this part of the fern as well. I suppose the positive, like I've said, I've got nothing to lose, because I would be so disappointed if I hadn't done this to these ferns and then next year they all start growing and then just die immediately again. Right, I'm going to take this bit off. So you have to, what is it, strike while the iron's hot. Take the opportunity and deal with something. Otherwise you've lost a whole other year, haven't you, of foliage. Right, that's that one. Right, so this is just a shop bought growing medium, peat free obviously. The trusty garden tool bag, as shown in my Christmas gift idea video. I'll put a link to it if you haven't seen it. Oh, this looks gorgeous. Smells lovely as well. This is why the area at the top of my drive always looks messy, because this is the only area I really have to do big gardening jobs like this, and I'm so lucky to have the space. So I knew I was going to be doing this job, so I went and bought the compost in anticipation. Right, let's see. So yes, I'll put a link to the other video I made as well, where it's how to make leaf mold, because I do state in that video that the trouble us gardeners are finding with the shop bought compost now is that it doesn't retain the water as well as when there was peat in the mix. So this is my leaf mold from last year. You can hardly tell the difference, but this leaf mold will retain the water. It's the nearest thing you can get to replacing the peat. So just mix it up. There's no actual food value in leaf mold. It just, it's a soil improver. So it improves the structure of the soil that you're planting into. It aerates it. It's easier for the plant's roots to get in, and like I say, it holds on to that moisture. So break it up so it's nice and crumbly. So you wouldn't just grow a piece of fern in 100% leaf mold. I don't exactly know what would happen, but there's no nutrition in the leaf mold for the plant. Right. Right, so all I'm going to do is fill this back up now. And then I'm going to put the biggest bit of fern in. And then I think I'm only going to put 2 bits of the fern back in rather than 3. So I've filled it, that's probably about 2/3 full. We'll just see where that goes. That goes to there. Will I get 2 bits in? No, you know, I'm only going to put 1 in. That's it. So he's right in the centre. So there we go. I'm going to position him right in the centre there. And then fill in round him with the new soil. And then when he's in, I'm going to give him a nice drink. And then that will get rid of any air pockets and make sure that the new soil that I'm packing round him is actually in touch with the roots that he has left. If I hadn't been repotting him, if he'd been absolutely fine, I wouldn't be giving him a good drink at this time of the year, because you're just asking for trouble then, because all you need is a hard frost and all that root ball would have been sitting in really soggy soil. But any plant that you transplant needs to be watered in well. I need to keep an eye on it as well, that it never dries out. Keep an eye on it for a few weeks. Right, a bit more compost around the crown there. Once I water him, the soil level will drop a bit. So I'll go and get a watering can of water. We'll give him a good drink. And then I'm going to top him off with some new gravel to keep any weeds at bay. There we go. Good drink. Just let that soak all the way down to the bottom and it'll drain out the bottom. And you can see the water just draining away out the bottom there. And then I've got some fresh Cotswold stone. And this, I think it just looks pretty on top of the pot, but also it'll stop any weeds growing up over the winter. And it sort of retains moisture in the soil as well. So there, right, I've given him every chance. I'm not going to give him a feed, but I will start feeding him with a liquid seaweed next spring when he starts to grow, because I find that usually the ferns really respond well to liquid seaweed. Again, that's not so much a plant food as a soil improver. So there we go. I've just been in the garage and I found lots of black pots, various sizes, and I'm going to pot all the rest of the ferns that I split up into black pots, because I don't know whether you noticed, but the house wall, I painted that black and the fence is black, and what I'm aiming for is that all the plants in that courtyard are in black pots, so the pots will just disappear into the background. You'll not notice them at all, and you'll just notice all the foliage. So yes, I've got my work cut out for me today. I'll just potter on here for a few more hours, get these all sewn up today. I want that done. And then I can just sort of put that to bed. So I do hope it's been helpful, particularly to those viewers who I know for sure were having similar problems with their ferns, and we were conversing and saying, oh, could it be that the ferns were pot bound? Well, they definitely were in my case. So that's good. It's all positive. It's not that there's anything horrible going on at the roots or anything like that, and you can do something about it. So here we are, quite a few hours later. So out of 3 pots of root-bound fern, I've managed to get all of these. And I think what I'll do with them is I'll make a space in the garage and overwinter them in there, because they don't need sunlight. They're going to stay underground. But I think just protecting the pots and the soil from getting too cold can only benefit the root ball, and it'll give them a chance to put on some new roots before the winter really arrives. Oh, and while I was at it, I repotted these little box, because these ones didn't get repotted last year, and that's what they looked like. They were in tiny pots, and this is one that I did repot last year. So such a difference. And they were all from the same batch. These came in those little 6-pack modules. So I hope you've enjoyed the video, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.